forward movement, from old ways of being to new ways of becoming. Yes, it can seem rather elusive to get there, but when you are in it, you feel it down to your very core, and it can positively affect everything in your life, from your relationships to your health and well-being, from your career path to your abundance, from the quality of your inner connection to the fullness of your self-expression. Here on the Christine Upchurch Show, we explore ways to get into that vibration of change with experts in the fields of consciousness, psychology, spirituality, health, healing, and science. Are you ready to step into your vibration of change? Hello, everybody. Welcome. So grateful you're joining us here today. You might be listening live on 1150 AM KKNW here in the Seattle area. And at the moment, it's sunny Seattle area, at least in my neck of the woods. Or you might be listening live anywhere around the world on transformationtalkradio.com, or perhaps live on Facebook Live, on my professional page, or after the fact on my YouTube channel, which I encourage you to sign up to, or one of the dozens of podcasts it sends up. But wherever and whenever, we're so grateful you're here because, you know, we do this show for you. And I'm really excited about our guest today, but I want to say hello to the people behind the technology first. Good morning, Mr. Benny Mathers at KKNW.
Hi, Christine. Big hug to you. There we go.
So big good. Hug back.
So
big
good.
Hug back. Yeah, how are your boys doing?
They're awesome. They're in school. Can't check in with them now. Maybe I should just surprise them one day. That'd be great, right? They're doing awesome.
How old are the twins now?
They turned 11 at the beginning of the month.
Yeah, I figured it was around their birthday time. So 11, I cannot believe it. I remember when they're, I don't know.
It's amazing. They're still little chatter bugs. They must take out for their dad or something. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. But we're going to go with that.
And good morning to Jacob at Transformation Talk Radio. How you doing?
Doing well. Good morning, Christine. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm just so excited about the sunshine, and I'm so excited about our guest today. It's somebody who's been a guest on our show before, and the other day, she and I were having a conscious conversation, and I really wish that we had been recording it on Zoom or something because it was so insightful. But I know that our listeners will benefit if they get to be the proverbial fly on the wall and listen to what she has to say and what we have to say to each other, because really there's something magical about the process of conversation. It's the sort of thing where you can read books and you can go to presentations and you can watch some things online. But when there's this conversation, there's this back and forth that allows the thought process, the energetics to flow in a way that may be unexpected. And it can be more expansive than just the simple, one person, one idea coming across. Our guest today is Cate Montana. She is a best-selling author. She is a journalist. She's got this amazing background, and she balances the psychology and the science and the spirituality in a way that is fairly unique. I truly appreciate her. And also, by the way, folks, if any of you happen to be writing a book or working on an article for publication, she's a fabulous editor. So I would like to welcome our guest today, Cate Montana. Hey, Cate.
Good morning. Good morning. It's still morning in the Pacific Northwest. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for the promotion. Work is good. Feeds the cat.
And, I think that there are plenty of people who want to make their mark in the world via a book. More and more people are writing books, and you don't even have to find your way to a publisher. And when you don't go through a publisher, you don't automatically get the types of editors that you need to get to have a decent book. I mean, having a show and having had a show for, it's pushing 9.5 years. I've been doing radio. It's the sort of thing where you can tell when somebody has jumped through the right editorial hoops and when they haven't. There, once upon a time, if it was a self-published book, it's like, I don't know, and you get on the first page and there would be grammatical errors or, typos or whatever. And some of the self-published books now are amazing. And it's clear when somebody has used an editor. So I did want to mention that as well, because I know you've edited my work before too. And one of the things, it's like, okay, so I've done some editing too, not the way you have, but I can be really good at the grammar, and I can be really good at, the punctuation and all that stuff. But sometimes I don't go deep enough. Sometimes I don't get vulnerable enough. You also called me on that. And so I think it's great to have somebody who's aware of the consciousness literature that's out there, as well as some of the scientific literature, because I know that you're a journalist in the scientific realm as well. Yeah. And to have somebody who's not only got an editorial eye, but also understands how somebody can make their mark within the field.
Yeah, and we all have our beautiful perspective, which everybody has a voice and everybody has a story, and it's just remarkable. And to be able to be what do they call a doula?
Yes.
To help be a birth mom. To help. It's really cool. It's really cool. It's so interesting. My ego always used to want to be, I'm the star, I'm the author, I'm the person on the stage, let me tell you what I know. And it's really cool. Maybe it's just a sign of getting older, but now I just don't give a hoot so much about that. Actually, I don't give a hoot at all. I could use a different word, but we'll use hoot. Thanks, Benny says. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, I like hoot. I like it. It's in my wheelhouse.
So now it's more about helping people get their own message out, and it's really cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I'm so excited to be back on the show, because it's been a couple of years, and I was just you'd been on my mind, and so I was so glad when we connected a few days ago. It was just pretty amazing, especially the waters we got into.
Oh yeah, and as you can probably guess, being on YouTube, streaming on radio, besides some of the swear words, there's certain words that we have to stay away from because it sort of triggers the censorship. But
like CV? What's your curriculum vitae? That's the new synonym. It's the new.
yes. And there are some great code words, and I've seen some amusing ways that people type this stuff to kind of avoid censorship. But it's really, we're not here to talk about the nitty-gritty of the science, the nitty-gritty of like the debate. Really, you and I have both been on our journeys. And I know that, way back when, I don't know, it was probably 2014, 2015. I don't know, when you were still here, not on the mainland as opposed to Hawaii, and you'd come out and visited out on Orcas.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking about bucking against some of the spiritual tenets of the New Age movement. And we were sort of doing our own processing of, wait a minute, this is what I'm supposed to believe in, and I'm not sure that makes sense. And so, we've been on a similar journey. And over the last couple of years, I know that you, as a scientific journalist, a medical journalist, you've been sort of assessing what's been going on. And so you and I have been on a similar path that way, because, research statistician, has to dive deep into this stuff, which has led to a kind of deep dive within, to belief systems, to ego. Can you just share with our listeners and viewers a little bit about your journey, your inner journey over the last couple of years?
Yeah, when COVID hit in 2020, it was like hitting a wall. It was like all my life I'd been, we're so doing oriented. We're so wired to, we're professional. We're doing oriented. And when that happened, all of a sudden it was like a curtain came down and went, oh my God, the spiritual truth that there's nothing external that can satisfy me just became so obvious. And it was like, oh my God, it's really true. There's nothing out there in the world that can satisfy me, make me happy, fulfill me. There's nothing I could. And it was just like immediately just back down within. And I ended I ended up dropping pretty much. I was starting to promote another book and do another book, and I was writing a stage play, and I dropped all of that, and I ended up starting to teach A Course in Miracles, because it was like the only thing that matters is that we get our act together and that we figure out really who we are and who we really are. And it's not the persona that precipitated all this mess that we've been dealing with the last 2 years. It's not the ego. It's not the, it's like, so I started teaching A Course in Miracles, and then that led to a real shocker. Somebody introduced me to a book called A Course of Love, and which was, I don't know if you know about this, it's another channeled teaching of Jesus that it blew me out of the water. Here I am, I've got a huge class doing A Course in Miracles, and 6 months into the class, somebody introduces me to A Course of Love, and I'm like, there's no way that there's another channeled teaching of Jesus. And so I'm in the midst of this conversation with this woman who is a divine, beautiful, heart-based being that I adore and trust. And she's talking about this. Yes, it was channeled 30 years later by this woman named Mari Perrone. And in my mind, Christine, was just going berserk, going, no, it took me long enough to figure that, to accept A Course in Miracles, and that there really was a channeling by Jesus, and there can't be another one, and there's nothing better. And all the while my mind is frothing, my heart is just exploding, going, yes, yes, yes. So as soon as I hung up the phone, I ordered it on Amazon, and it consumed me. It just took me over. And I realized that this is the next step for me from A Course in Miracles. And it's about, The Course in Miracles is about reframing our mind and waking up to that I'm not this persona, Cate Montana, who stands on a stage or who writes books or who has all these dreams and aspirations. No. Who this deeper being is, and reworking the mind. But then the next step is to open the heart, so the heart and the mind can link up, and the heart can lead. Yes. And so anyway, so I had to actually tell my whole class of A Course in Miracles students that I was not going to teach A Course in Miracles anymore, that I was switching to A Course of Love. So that was interesting. But it's been, to get to your original question, it's been 2 years of just letting go all these last shreds of, people might say the last shreds of hope that I'm going to do something, accomplish something, be somebody, blah, blah, blah. But it's been this rich dive into my heart and just following where that goes. So so I lose half my class of A Course in Miracles, and then everybody the rest shifts over to A Course of Love, and I've just watched miracles happen in people's lives. I've just watched people, just let go of issues that have driven them for decades, and I've realized that it's this energetic portal. What's so cool about it is that I don't even have to understand what I'm reading anymore, because that's not the point. Is the intellectual mind can never wrap itself around that who we really are place. And and I've just accepted that energetic portals exist, like A Course of Love, et cetera, et cetera. And then just, if you're pulled, explore, walk through, and that it's easy. That's one of the real revelations I've had in the past couple of years, Christine, because we're in the midst of this horrific social breakdown where nothing is easy and everything is torturous and tortured and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, all of a sudden, life has just gotten so easy, because I've dropped a lot of the mental conversation and argument within myself, and just eased into the simplicity of my heart. And then I just follow it. Whatever shows up next is the right thing to do.
And I find it fascinating that you got to a place where some people would say you just don't care anymore, right? Yeah. And I have gotten to the same place, and I'm not always there, mind you, but it's been a significant part of my transformation over the last couple of years. And it's the kind of thing where letting go of the shoulds, letting go of the want tos, letting go of the mission desire, which, I was always so mission based before, has led me to this, I don't care, and this is expansive place.
Yes.
And it's been so surprising, like, okay, well, is it just the stage of life I'm at? Have I just been, run ragged with my belief systems about certain things in our world kind of being, beaten up and transformed to like disbelieve a whole lot of things. Am I weary? It's like, no, I just don't care about the same things anymore. And in that creates this sort of beingness and this sense of allowing that is incredibly expansive.
Yeah. Nothing looks the same and everything looks the same.
I love that. Yeah, and it's weird. It's funny because I had about a year ago I had this interesting experience. I was busy cutting up some vegetables in the kitchen, and there I am working with a sharp knife and a carrot or something like that, and I'm looking through my eyes and I'm looking at my hands. I no longer feel my body. And I'm looking at my hands and I'm like, my hands? Are those my hands? No, not my hands. Are those my hands? And it was like I was observing from this other place through my body, but not, so it wasn't like I was transcending the body completely and sort of like looking down on myself like astral projection or something like that. It was like there I was in my body functioning as a human being going about a daily task, cooking dinner, and yet I was disconnected from my body and yet still seeing through my eyes. And it was this weirdest thing. I'm sure that, in some cases, psychologists would say, oh, she needs to be locked up for that, right? But it felt like this incredibly significant few moments where I recognized this duality that we're living in, and not the good, bad duality, because that's a whole other thing, but this duality of being spirit, witnessing the life within the human form, but also being the human going about life.
It's so interesting because one of the things that Jesus talks about in A Course of Love is that we have come to a place in evolution of creation where, so the original urge was to express through physical form. And then we got locked into physical form and identified with physical form. So then the struggle in physical form was to get out of physical form and get back to our original light. So it was always about getting out to God, getting back to God. The higher self, please, higher self, save me. And so, and this has rocked my world in the last couple of years, Christine, is because now it's about actually really being God in form and creating. And Jesus calls that we are now at the time of the elevated self of form. We've been God, and we're still God. We've been locked in form, identified with form. We've struggled to get back to God, but we've never experienced God as the original point of creation was to walk and talk and chew gum as the divine beings that we are. And so then the locus of perception, how you identify, it's, I've been like everybody else locked into this body thinking that and identifying with this, with form, then trying to get out of form. But then there's this place when that's who we really are, that perspective just gradually starts taking us over until the center of perception isn't I'm the body trying to be spiritual. It's all of a sudden the spiritual aspect of ourselves that encapsulates the body. It surrounds the body. It permeates the body. It animates the body. It is the body. But it's more than the body. So it's like this surrounding perception. And that's what you experienced in that moment in the kitchen. You were your body. You were aware of your body. You were acting through your body, but you weren't your body. You were larger than your body, but you weren't out of your body.
Exactly.
That's the bingo. That's what we're looking for.
And what I've been saying for years now is that we've, so many of the spiritual teachings have been about, transcending the body, as you talked about, and reaching up and connecting in that higher frequency vibration. But really, it's a matter of coming into a fuller vibration that includes the high frequency vibration, as well as the lower frequency, denser vibration of the body. And that's so important, because that what that does is it's essentially grounding the light within the body, grounding the light, more light onto the planet, which I believe will ultimately shift the planet.
It's that, you know, there's no more ultimately about it, Christine. It's shifted the planet, and that's why we're seeing the what did I say? The hoot storm. The hoot storm that's been going on for the last 2 years, because we have been dreaming of this new place, this new expression, this expression of the elevated self in form. And for eons, it was the original point of creation to begin with. And now we're stepping into those big shoes that have always been waiting for us. And when we do that, then all of the crapola that has been the creation of the ego, of the fear-based separated self, that thrives and desperately needs control and power over, and and it is consumption based. It's got to have more to feed its emptiness. That's the spotlight's on it, baby. So that's what we're seeing, and it's taken me a while to kind of like, wow, have we really already moved into this amazing space? Yes, we have. I've gone from, at the beginning of the whole COVID show, going, oh my God, it's all falling apart and it's terrible, to, oh my God, it's all falling apart and it's supposed to, it has to, and we have created this.
Yes.
And this is just the gateway.
And it's, some people call it devolution. That's an important part of, devolving in a way to get
devolution.
Get us to this place of breaking apart, like, first of all, illuminating the dysfunction and the evil, and the control, and then breaking the systems that are basically continuing that, that control, that ego-based creation, and breaking those systems down so that we can evolve, because we really cannot evolve within the context of the structures as they are. And it's kind of crazy to try to think about how that might unfold, but and it can invoke fear in us too, because we're so used to life looking a certain way. And it's not just a matter of whether we go to the store with or without this thing over our face or not. It has to do with the way we interact with our neighbors, the way we connect with humans, the way we make money. It's like it's going to affect us in so many ways, including how we interact with our planet.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, of course, mainstream media is completely censored and shut down. But I think the figure is something like 70. It's a 70-mile long truck caravan now in Canada.
Yes.
Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of truckers. And probably 1 million people along the highway, waving flags, supplying food, supplying beverages, supplying places to it's just this huge output. Vaccinated, unvaccinated, it doesn't matter. We are human beings together to support ourselves outside of this restrictive, fear-based existence that's crippling us. This always crippled us. Now we see the larger picture, where all of the global crippling, and it's just like, we're not, the whole joke about the journey, spiritual journey, is that to finally see what you're not.
Yes.
And we're finally, on a global level, whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Arabic, agnostic, atheistic, whatever you are, is to see, oh my God, I can't identify with this crap anymore. And go, whoa, well, if I'm not that, and I don't feel, and it's not about the issues where we can go to war with one another. Right. We're so sick of the war.
We are.
And this is such a beautiful place to finally come to. Oh my God. I hit a wall with a very close friend and business associate of 17 years over the C word. And
Mhm.
and it was such an opportunity because I dropped it. I so wanted to get my point across. I so wanted to be, I didn't even want to be right. I just wanted to be heard and understood and accepted. And
Right.
it wasn't happening. And I had to let that go. I remember waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm all, I'm going to respond to that email. And you're lying there at 3 a.m. going, well, I could say this and I could say that. And, you're all knotted up. And it's like, and I lay there and I went, this sucks. This is stupid. I don't want to do this anymore. And I got off it like that. I dropped it. And it ended up ending the relationship, but it was an imbalanced relationship anyway that actually needed to go. So that it could have, so that the other person could evolve, I could evolve and move on.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow.
It's so interesting because I think that for those of us who believe that we are seeing many aspects of truth that the masses in general are not, willing to look at or aren't able to see, or, their version of reality is different, however you want to term it. I think that many of us have had to let go of relationships of all sorts. I know that there are huge rifts in people's families and, people who've been uninvited to weddings and uninvited to holiday gatherings and these sorts of things. And then there are friendships that end and people are exiting businesses or jobs because, they're told they have to do one thing and it's not in alignment with who they are. And so, although these aren't necessarily easy decisions on one level, another level, it is easy. It's just navigating who we are and how we move about in life and the choices we make.
That, and I've seen so many friends and counseled numerous people through this really painful passage where you are disinvited to your sister's wedding. And it's like, and to stand firm in who you are, but to love who you are and to acknowledge who you are is so incredibly powerful. And then not make the other person wrong. But here we come back to the whole sticky issue of, is love enough? Is it enough that I simply hold love for myself, for my sister, for my family? It doesn't mean I'm going to get railroaded into doing something I don't want to do. It doesn't mean I'm heard and understood, but I sit in love, and maybe my sister will come back into my life at another time, maybe not. Is love enough? Do I trust that, across space and time, will that be enough that I'm still connected to her? Yeah. And that I can still embrace her and be whole and be still with my family in spirit. Is that enough? Because we're being called on our BS about, well, I'm a spiritual person and it's all about love. And then we hit these places and it's a fish or cut bait time.
And it's interesting to see some of the divisiveness and some of the hate speech against those who chose not to get the what in the arm. And then to see some of these people who've said horrific things about, they should have their kids taken away, or they're horrible, horrible things. Hope they die. Seeing that they get their next one and then, within 48 hours, within 24 hours, they're dead of a blood clot or whatever. And it's like, to be able to see that, it's not like, oh, well, they got their just theirs. It's more like, how sad it feels like. First of all, on a human level, it feels very frustrating to not be able to sway people based on information, right? And the information's out there. But beyond that, it's the sort of thing where we have to continue to have compassion for those who have hated us, for those who have, sort of fed the divisiveness that is so toxic to our planet right now. And to trust that they had their soul's journey, they played their role within the context of this collective, but to not feel a sense of, vengeful enjoyment.
Yeah. Who is it? For God's sakes, Jesus, would look people in the eye and say, you're not my mother. You're not my father. You walk away from your family. And because that's not our real it is our real family, but it's not our real family. Our real family is of the heart and the soul. And we have got to be able to learn to let go. So, and at a certain point, it's not even easier than said than done. It's just like, we've got to let go. And I've got a dear friend who's, she couldn't wait for the vaccine for her little 11-year-old boy, who just is just this precious being. And I just had to let go. She didn't want to hear a word about anything. And here's the human, here's the horrible human side. Here's just the human side. And have I had a thought like, well, if he gets sick and dies, that'll show you that I was right. That voice is there. It's in all of us. Well, it's in me. I'll just raise my hand and say it's in me. And I've stopped judging it. It's just that perspective. It's just that stupid little human blah, blah. And that's not who I am. Yeah. And so it doesn't twist me up anymore that comes up. I just go, yeah. Which reminds me of that other part of the conversation that we had the other day talking about Watiko. The mind parasite.
Tell us a little bit about that. It's fascinating.
Boy. It is fascinating. I'll even hold up a book. I don't know. Is it reversed?
No, it's correct. It's correct.
Yeah. So Watiko, healing the mind virus that plagues our world. There's this, who hasn't seen the image of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other? And, we've been torn so long and so with these two voices in our heads. And it's all part of the separation game of identifying with the physical body and then thus feeling isolated and alone and thus afraid and then afraid of the other. And then there's conflict and war and divisiveness and judgment and then everything that's been playing out for eons. So there's this growing understanding that this voice of separation is aligned with a force, if you will, of, I'll use the word evil, which is something that I dodged the whole evil darkness conversation. Being a spiritual person, I was all about the light. And okay, so I had to do some shadow work because that's part of the spiritual journey process. You got to look at your shadow, but I'm not really my shadow, and it really doesn't matter. And I've left it behind long ago. I'm safely beyond that. But and that thought about my friend's son obviously is the lie to that. I've not left that behind. It's just part of us. And it's a story that has plagued humanity forever. And it is based in this fear, in this sense of separate self. But this is so bizarre and out of my wheelhouse, Christine, that I came across this whole conversation. So I've been listening to a woman by the name of Jacqueline Hobbs, and she's also known as Oracle Girl, oraclegirl.org. I highly recommend anybody check her out. She's really, I can't even describe this woman, but she's basically says, look, I'm here. I'm from the future. This is what I do. I've been drawn here because this is a situation where humanity is equal to this new life that we've been setting forward and dreaming together across time and space and dimensions. And so she just holds something called a purification space that helps us align our own energies with who we really are. So that's her. But she also talks about this other presence that has been influencing humanity in the dark for millions of years. And then, so I'm like, right. And then I run across this Watiko book by Paul Levy. And he's talking about, and there's a word for this presence, this dark, it's interdimensional, it's non-physical, and yet it works into the physical through us. It's called a mind parasite. It's called Wetiko in the Native American, I think Ojibwe. It's called in the Sioux Nation, I think they call it Wendigo. In Arabic, it's referred to as Iblis. Shaitan, biblical, Abrahamic religions. The Kabbalah calls it Kelipat. Sri Aurobindo calls it the hostile force. Other people call it mind parasites. And then I haven't listened to David Icke, the gentleman from, everybody labels him a conspiracy theorist.
Who's been right about a whole lot of things so far.
Who's been right about a whole lot of things. I haven't listened to David Icke in 15 years, and I accidentally stumble across this. And I sent you the link. I don't know. Did you watch that? Have you?
I haven't watched it yet, but I have watched some of his things over the last year.
And it just nails it in a nutshell. He just goes, look, XYZ millions of years ago, us beautiful spirit, light body entities, interdimensional beings of love, wanted the physical experience. And there was a force that created the image of the body that actually entrapped us. And we got locked into an image, and it was actually a scientific projection of a hologram.
Interesting.
And we beautiful non-corporeal blah 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 entities got enmeshed in this holographic projection, and we've been trapped ever since, identifying with the body, all the fear, separation, blah blah that comes from that. And so, and what's fascinating is there's all these scientists now. I can't remember the guy's name, Dr. James. Anyway, they are now, a lot of quantum physicists are now pretty sure that we are about 80% probability that we're living in a simulation.
Yeah.
And there's even one scientist who's discovered binary computer code buried at the superstring level.
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
Okay. So I just want to back up here for a minute, because you're talking about something that I would call evil, and it sounds like there are a lot of different names for it. And it's not just like, the darkness of our shadow, but rather some entities or some energy that it has been affecting humanity. And it brings me back to this concept of bucking the New Age system, because one of the tenets of the New Age system is that there's only love and fear. And one of the corollaries to that is that evil doesn't exist. It's really fear. And I think that for most humans, who are whole and in a variety of ways, that's absolutely true. But I also believe that there is this evil energy that has infected plenty of people, and that they use that evil to create the fear in people that creates the bigger shadows and so forth. So what's your perspective on evil then?
This is so nascent in me. This is also recent. This. All right, I've been on the spiritual path for 40 years, and this is the last 3 months that I've been looking at this. Mm-hmm. So this is so raw and new for me, Christine. Mm-hmm. My take on it is that this force exists, that it comes from a different source. And this so broadens. I have to, credit Jacqueline Hobbs with this concept, is that she said, in the spiritual community I was raised in, there's only one source. It's God, it's the light, and everything is of the light. Even fear is of the light. And so everything is of the light, and there's only one source. So Jacqueline has introduced this, that there's more than one source. And which just explodes my head.
Oh, it's making my crown chakra go nuts, and that's my tell that something is true.
Oh my God. And I'm going, okay, what could possibly be? I can't fathom that other source. And she said, and that's the whole point. The other source can't fathom us either. But the other force is into control and consumption. It's driven by its emptiness. Its very fabric is emptiness versus the fulsomeness of the light. So, yeah, so it's driven by a completely different agenda. And it thrives in the dark. It remains this hidden force, and it takes embodiment through us. There we go into possession, then we go through all of these different things. And also that apparently, if you listen to David Icke, this other force has been trying to genetically manipulate the human race for eons and to be able to utilize these bodies for themselves, for itself, whatever this force that these entities are.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of taking I have to calm down. so
no, you don't. No shoulds. No shoulds.
So I've kind of got this dual look at evil now, is that, my whole premise with one of my last books, the E Word, about the ego, is that the ego, the sense of separation, is a natural result of being birthed into a body. The little baby learns that the breast and, the bottle is out there. It's totally, there's no words, it's unconscious, but the sense of other and out there is ingrained in us from our moment of our birth. So we automatically are birthed into this separation reality that isn't really reality, apparently. So the fear that is engendered with that, and the need to compete, the need to own, the need to control, is a natural offshoot of that experience. And then there's this other force that also exists that amplifies that. And then manipulates us through that.
Right.
So it's kind of like a double donger.
Yeah. And I've heard various people, channelers and others, who talk about how the evil force, if it exists, it's like I'm still processing this myself, because I do believe that evil exists, but is there that separate force that's evil? That it actually is controlling the reincarnation process.
Absolutely.
And it's getting thrown back into a body is very much about serving that force instead of the light.
Oh, honey, I remember a million years ago in my life, I went to the Ramtha School of Enlightenment in Washington State. One of the very first things that Ramtha taught, like back in 1992, was that do not go to the light when you die.
Interesting.
Which just, blew my little mind 30 years ago. And it's been that teaching has been in the back of my mind for 30 years. So now I'm listening to this source talk about holographic projection, our spiritual interdimensional being, love beings that we are, enmeshed, entrapped in a projection, a light projection, a holographic projection. Okay. And then Wetiko and all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh, holy God. I can see now, 35 years later, what Ramtha said, don't go to the light. That's just cycling into the projection, getting stripped and shoved right back into the hologram. So he always advised, he said, hang a left, go to the void, and just hang out. And then let your own being settle, your own inner light, create your next step for you, rather than being caught in an external projection.
It's interesting because I've heard Tom Kenyon, who channels the Hathors, the Hathors saying the exact same thing. Don't go to the light after you pass. Stay in that void, because that is that powerful place of creation or something along those lines. But basically saying the same thing. And so when we think about people's near-death experiences, when they come back, they talk about this incredible feeling they have when they go to the light, when they merge with the light. And it makes me wonder, like, okay, well, there's got to be good to this, because they come back and they feel incredibly loved and all this. But is it a matter of just keeping us in this matrix? And is there any problem with us staying in the matrix? Maybe there's soul growth, or really should we be getting out of the matrix? I don't know.
Well, here we come right back to where we almost started with what Jesus talks about is time to be the elevated self of form. There is a certain point, I think, in this experience where the darkness and the fear and the illusion of separation goes bye-bye. It has to. It's evolution. I mean, if there's anything I've learned to trust is life. Life is evolutionary. Now, humanity may not be, we may self-implode and destroy ourselves and humanity won't be around, but life will continue to evolve with us or without us.
Right.
So without that judgment about that, it's like I'm taking great comfort in that, and that all the stuff that we're dealing with these last 2 years, oh my God, this is the birth pangs of us moving into who we really are, into the light of our own being of love that is going to spit that other force out. And then our own internal sense of separation and fear, which we call the ego, that drives all that. Without that other force amplifying that message of fear and illusion of separation, then we have our opportunity to be who we really are and just take the mask off and go, oh, holy Moses, there you are, Peter. I just watched Hook the other day. Sorry, there you are, Peter. And I remember, and here I got to go back to Ramtha and 35 years ago. I remember him saying at a session one night, he said, when they turn the machines off that have been pumping that's been holding this holographic image of fear that we've been trapped in, he said, when they turn the machines off, you'll know finally who you are. You'll be able to see who you are.
Wow. For part of my journey with this concept of this evil force, so to speak. I was raised Christian. I was taught about Satan and, all that. And then I got beyond a lot of the fear. And I think it's very helpful in the sense of not believing in evil to get beyond the fear, right? Because if you think there's only light, then when you play in the light, then you're safe, right? So I'd gotten really good at having clear energetic boundaries. And there's plenty of darkness out there. I mean, I've seen things come out of people before, with eyes that look directly at me, and, this shadow stuff that comes out. And so I know that there are these things that exist. And so, I've got really good boundaries in my home. I've got really good boundaries around myself. And it's something that I've, partly it's about working to create those boundaries, but part of it's just like evolving to have enough light that the boundaries are there. And, a few months ago, all of a sudden there was this being, let me precede that about, 9 months ago or whatever, 8 months ago, my guide started presenting me with this huge sword of light, this white light sword. And it was put in front of me, and I intuitively knew that I was supposed to drop it into my body. So I'd see it sort of in my mind's eye and put it in. And then I found myself spontaneously saying the phrase, Christ consciousness. When you say that phrase, for me, it was like it was shifting my energy. I had no idea why. I mean, I know about Christ consciousness, but it's not like, I haven't been worshiping in that realm, that so to speak. So it's just sort of like this spontaneous thing. So several times a day, I'd have this sort of light that I put into my body, and I would just spontaneously occasionally say Christ consciousness. Well, a few months ago, this really dark entity was coming not into my space, but coming to fight me. And I intuitively knew to pull the sword in and to whoosh light out. And sometimes I'd say Christ consciousness. And it wasn't, and I had to work really hard to not come to this place of fear. And it was, it would occasionally have a face that looked like somebody in the public realm that everybody around the world knows. But I'm not even going to get into who that is. But it was like this for 2.5 days and nights, sort of random times. This thing would come in, and I'd go through this process, bring in the light sword and whoosh light out. And eventually it was just gone. And so it really shifted my perspective about, this concept that evil doesn't exist, this concept that, there's only love and fear, because I did a really good job not coming to this place of fear. which was not always easy because this thing was like vicious. And it still existed. And then it felt like it disappeared. And I don't feel like it just like wandered off, to deal with somebody else. I really feel like it was exiting the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this mind-blowing experience that I had no expectations about.
Yeah.
And it felt very much connected to that energetic control system.
Mm-hmm. When I picked up, I don't know why I'm pushing Paul Levy's book, but I am. When I picked up this book, this is just a couple of months ago. It was actually over Christmas, and I was like, I consciously went, "Oh God," because I knew I was opening up a gateway here. Because when I first opened up, when I cracked my Kundalini through excessive, unguided meditation way early in my life, the stuff that I experienced, oh my God. I mean, the dark astral realms, that's where I spent probably a year battling that. And I remember my last engagement was I would be dragged out of my body at night. I could hear gabbling and shrieking in the distance, and I could feel hands all over my body. And then my astral body would be pulled out and I'd be hurled. And the last place I was thrown was this horrible graveyard. And I'm terrified and I'm creeping around. There was this huge slimy crypt. And I'm walking up past this crypt, and this enormous red-eyed, fangs dripping claws, big beast comes. And I'm like, just out of my mind with fear. And it gets like right here. And all of a sudden, that sort of light, that something just rose, love. My light rose up in me, and I felt such love. And I looked at that beast in the eyes with such love, and the eyes just went, ah! And it turned and ran.
Oh, interesting.
And then I was back in my body, and I was never bothered again.
Interesting.
Well, and that's not true. Every once in a while, over the course of decades, I've had encounters with dark forces. Absolutely. Yeah. So I knew that if I was going to open this book, I was going to open myself back up to it because I'm contemplating it, right. And it's just like, and then why wouldn't I contemplate it and be okay? Because either I know who I am or I don't. Is there still a whisper of fear? Yeah. That's part of me. Blah, blah. It's the past. It's normal. It's regular. It's whatever it is. It's just a habit. It's not who I am.
I like that. It's just a habit.
It's a habit.
That's profound, Cate. That's profound. Before we go any further,
because we're over there,
what's that?
I said we go there over and over and over the course of our lives so many billions of times that it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
But it's not who we are. And at a certain point, we are who we are. We shine that light and we can depend on that. I had 3 disturbed nights reading this book. Not bad, but I definitely had bad dreams. I don't get bad dreams. But I knew it, but I was even aware in the dreams, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what this is.
Yeah.
There was a level of consciousness, so it was very cool.
And for me, the past couple of years, delving into, people will call it the truther movement. It's the darker aspects of things that are unfolding. I had some disturbed nights too, and it wasn't like bad dreams I was aware of. It was just kind of like couldn't sleep all the way through the night. I'd wake up. But before we go any further, because we're running out of time here, I want to make sure people know how they can connect with you, Cate.
God, I'm on Facebook still. Cate Montana. Cate. I think. Oh, doesn't matter. I hate Facebook.
Cate Montana.
Because I can't say anything real. So www.catemontana.com. That's the best place to reach me.
And Cate is spelled with a C. Cate. Yep. Montana, just like the state in the United States. And before I say my goodbyes, I want you to all go check out Cate's website. Also, if you enjoy these conversations, if you want to share this with others, please go sign up on my YouTube channel, subscribe, like. This particular interview will be up in a couple of days, and so you'll be able to share that with others. Cate, it's always expansive to talk to you. Thank you for letting our listeners be the proverbial flies on the wall.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Christine. I loved it again, always.
And I really appreciate those of you who have tuned in and watched. Again, catemontana.com. My website's christineupchurch.com, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Christine Upchurch. Thanks, everybody.
All right, all clear.